minimized. Get optimized. Get naturalized. Exercise. Let your life get Mickey Mized. Mickey Mehta's Your Workouts.
The global leading holistic health guru, भारत में इक्विपमेंट फ्री ट्रेनिंग के अग्रदूत, 24 घंटों में स्विमिंग सिखाने के विश्व रिकॉर्ड होल्डर, भारतीय टेलीविजन और रेडियो पर वेलनेस को लाने वाले पहले शख्स, वेलनेस जॉनर में सोशल मीडिया की बादशाह, होलिस्टिक हेल्थ कैटेगरी में विकिपीडिया पर आने वाले एकमात्र एशियन जिन्होंने ट्रेन किया है बॉलीवुड के सितारों को, बड़े बड़े रईसों को, जाने माने नेताओं को और मुंबई पुलिस को, जिन्होंने भारत को कई मिस वर्ल्ड और मिस यूनिवर्स दिए, भारत के सबसे बड़े होलिस्टिक हेल्थ पोर्टल के संचालक, an author, a philosopher, an institution, the brand, the dream life coach, the legendary Mickey Mehta.
He is the recipient of the Health and Wellness Icon of India Award by Economic Times and is among the 100 most impactful wellness leaders of the world, as announced at the Global Wellness Conclave 2018. He is the first personal trainer of India, the first fitness columnist and the first fitness TV and radio presenter in India, and still continues to educate us on these channels. He is the author of 2 very successful books, The Shunyam Quotient and Lose Weight, Gain Shape, with 5 more books in the pipeline. The only one in India to have an honorary double doctorate in holistic health and life sciences for integrated medicines. He has been invited to speak at the Harvard University, IITs and IIMs across the world. He has the rare distinction of training the police, the army, the navy and the air force. He is the coach to Miss Indias, Miss Worlds, Miss Universes and Bollywood biggies, politicians and Indian billionaires. He's recently joined to support the government's Fit India movement. He has partnered with the Bombay Stock Exchange and the Indian Drug Manufacturers Association to promote invincible health and infinite immunity for humanity in the COVID lockdown days. The author, poet, philosopher, the brand, the institute, the legendary Dr. Mickey Mehta, who gets you energized, naturalized, optimized, maximized, wellness revolutionized, and gets you Mickey Mized.
That's quite something, Mickey, right? I mean, if I had to use up all the words in the English dictionary, I think I'll just fall short. There are just so many dimensions to you.
Well, it's divine grace, I can say.
Well, a warm welcome. We have a very large portion of our senior team here on this call waiting to hear from you. So I'm not going to take the thunder away from you. But I'm very intrigued, and I'm sure most of our audience also is. The session is called Mind is Medicine. I'm very curious to know, why do you say that?
Because for me, breath becomes medicine, food becomes medicine, a good night's sleep also becomes medicine, a good workout is medicine, sitting quietly and minding your own business is also medicine, meditating, prayer is medicine, exposure to the sun, morning sun, listening to the chirping of the birds, mingling with the elements is all medicine. And of course, why mind is medicine? Because if your mind is in order, regulated and full of light of awareness, then everything that happens to you happens in your awareness, in your consciousness, and there is only order. When mind is distraught, fragmented, scattered, tattered, there is disorder. So when your mind is in order, it is in ease, completely in ease, it is oriented, and when your mind is otherwise, it is in disease. So mind, when in charge of your entire functions, systems, organs, and everything that happens in orchestration, in tandem, then mind is medicinal. And mind is always watchful. Mind should be always watchful, because mind shouldn't be either in the past or in the future. Mind always should be in here and now, like I am with you and you are with me, and we both are 100% aware only about this moment. So actually, when your mind is, you are not. When your mind is, you are not. When you are, your mind is not. Which means when you're spiritually completely aware, your mind is absent. So, spiritual awareness, when filled in the empty mind, that is probably what we call mindfulness. Mindfulness is not mind filled with anything else but with light of awareness, but with light of here now, but with light of consciousness. It is said that anyone who gives 100% to whatever he or she is doing in the moment will manifest it 100%. Because the attention principle says that when you put attention to the field, you energize it. And when you put intention to the field, you transform it. So you become the co-creator of your reality. You become the co-creator of your destiny. And also, it is said that you have legs to walk towards your destiny, hands to make it, eyes to perceive it, heart to believe it, a soul and a spirit to achieve it. Also, there's a lovely saying from Rig Veda comes to my mind. We are what our deepest desires are. As are our desires, so will be our will. As will be our will, so will be our intentions. As will be our intentions, so will be our deeds. And as will be our deeds, so will be our destiny. And this is only possible when you are completely mindful. And this is mindful, MINDFUL, not FULL. So it is very important because we have 5 senses. And our 5 senses, the horses of our 5 senses, they pull us in various directions. When they pull us in various directions, we begin to perceive from 5 directions minimum. Millions of bits and pieces of information we perceive. And we are fragmented in pieces. The mind is fragmented in pieces. But when in meditation, when in the state of awareness, when all these 5 senses become one in unison, Namaste. So pieces become one piece, P-I-E-C-E. And P-I-E-C-E translates into P-E-A-C-E. So when you are in pieces, you are distraught. But when you are in one piece, when 5 senses come together, then guess what happens? Guess what? Come on, tell me. Anybody? Okay, when 5 senses come together, common sense prevails. So, it is said that common sense can also translate into extrasensory perceptions, multisensory perceptions, foresights, insights, coordination, balance. Then, of course, you are in the flow and you are in the rhythm. So compassion, empathy, sympathy, benevolence, clarity, creativity, productivity, everything happens to you when you are mindful. So empty the mind and mind the emptiness with the light of awareness. Okay? Bring in wellness throughout madness.
Wow. Nikki, there's so much awareness about physical health. Every second person you meet will tell you how he's working hard to keep himself fit and how fitness is so important for life. Why do you think then that mental health is not taken as seriously, and why do people not attach as much value or importance to mental health as compared to physical health? Is it because it doesn't come naturally, or people just don't value the true meaning of that?
Okay, so I developed a very good acronym for MIND. Mindful Insights Neutralizing Duality. So what is this duality? Subject-object duality. So this subject-object duality is nothing but when the energy principle was first born and matter took shape. So we are called individuals, right? We are called individuals. Now we individuals mean indivisible duality. Indivi means indivisible and dual means duality. So we should be the subject-object wholeness, oneness. A divided person will always be distraught, fragmented, scattered. But a whole person who is always in a meditative frame of mind, who is complete in every which way, is a person with insights. is a person with foresight, is a person who is a master of here now. So this is what can make you a person which is full, fuller and fullerton, everything put together. So it is very important that if you want to be balanced in wholesomeness, holisticism, holistic health, one always has to be mindful of everything, which means just watching around and orchestration of perceptions, collective perceptions become perspective. So your perspectives have to be very deep, very, very deep. And only a meditative frame of mind can get you there. So this is the way you be mindful, quietening yourself. So every couple of hours, if you can just silence yourself for a couple of hours. Silence yourself for a couple of minutes, if not a couple of hours then. And then those minutes will get into 1 hour and 1 into 2. And maybe in the night, if people can really silence themselves for 2-3 hours, literally, I mean, one becomes a master manifester, one becomes master of the universe, one becomes master of the mechanics, whatever you may say.
Interesting, interesting. You know, you always have been saying, and I've been reading a lot about you, that, you know, we aren't victims of our genes. We typically tend to blame our behavior to our genetics, or we were born like that, or the family is like that, and this is the best I can do. But you are not of that belief. What makes you believe that we are capable of doing far more than what we were born with?
See, our means are far powerful than our genes. You must try and understand that. So there is a modern scientific frontier called epigenetics and transgenerational epigenetic reset. So let me tell you that there is a modern science frontier which is called epigenetics, and it's also called transgenerational epigenetic reset, which tells you that 95% of your genes are indeterministic and only 5% are deterministic. So these 95% genes can keep expressing in new ways with your intended lifestyle and intended outcome of your biology. The way you aspire, the way you desire your life and health and body to be. There's a very old philosophy of Aristotle called teleology also, which also tells you that the outcome of your intended desire and aspirations of human body or animal body or anything which has life is called teleology. It sometimes takes generations, sometimes it takes centuries, and sometimes it would probably take a millennia, but it continues to happen. So, if you were to change your habits and form new memories with food, with exercise, with breathing, with sleep, with attitude, optimism in your attitude, with quietening yourself, meditation, prayer, laughter, singing, recreation, you will certainly not carry forward the legacy of your genes. Which means if your genes were to have diabetes, cancer, asthma, arthritis, hypertension, they will never get triggered because you're constantly forming new memories. There's also another science which is called plasticity, brain plasticity or neuroplasticity. Brain and neuroplasticity also simply means that getting your body into new ways of doing things and building new neural pathways and building new synaptic connections in your brain to perform in a completely different way. So it is said that every year your whole being changes for new. Every 7 days your stomach lining changes for new. Every 30 days your skin changes for new. Every 90 days your musculoskeletal structure changes for new. And every year your entire being changes for new, except for collagen and cartilage, which generally takes around maybe 15 to 18 months to change for new. So every human being can be a complete new self in health every year.
Interesting. You know, you did talk about breathing as a very important part of, you know, calming down the body and bringing about balance. On that note, why don't you show us some of the good techniques which help us breathe better? We can have some of our participants actually try or attempt to do it after you or with you.
So the most simplest way of getting the life into rhythm and flow is to immediately watch your breath and check your breath. in watching there is transformation. Why as per Hindu philosophy, or when I say Hindu, it's not Hindu religion, but Hindu, the way of life, Sanatan Dharma, Hindu Sanskriti, and Hindu Sanskars, Sansar, and Hindu Gunas. So, the Vedic interests definitely say that you are made of Akasha. Akasha is ether. Ether is the scaffolding this universe is made of. And ether is the invisible element which is present in air, water, fire, and earth. Our thoughts ride on ether. Ether is the most sensitive element from where everything comes, to which everything returns. So, coming to the point, what was your question? Sorry, I once again lost the track.
I wanted you to show us and demonstrate some
breathing. I'm so sorry. I just got mentally so disoriented with all this happening around. Bear me out. It will all fall in place. So let's do one thing. Let's all sit very quietly and shut our eyes. So it is said in life that when things don't work, change your lenses. And even that doesn't work, shut off your senses. So let's all shut off our senses, quieten ourselves. Let's reboot, reset. So once we are with eyes shut, now simply watch your breath going in and breath coming out. Don't try and pull it, don't try and push it. As your breath is going in, you're watching it. As your breath is flowing out, you're watching it. As you're breathing in, you're watching it. As you're breathing out, you're watching it. By and by, you will realize that you're not the one who is breathing. By and by, you will realize it is not the body that is breathing. By and by, you will realize that it is the natural rhythm through which breathing happens, in the state of being and not in the state of doing. This brings one philosophy to the fore, that you are not the body, you are not the mind, you are the one who has the body and the mind. So, who are you? I am. I am that eternal spirit which is unborn, or rather we can say which was never born and shall never die. Death comes to the body. Death has no right on life. Death is the culmination of diseases. Diseases are the culmination of your choices. At every point in time, you can choose evolution over entropy. Making conscious choices moves you towards evolution, and only a human being is capable of rising on the ladder of evolution and rise higher than gods or fall below animals. As you keep breathing in and slowly out, you come to realization of that oneness, unison, yoke, yuj, togetherness, the point of zero, the point of shunyam, the point of absolute. On a vector scale, the complete zero, point zero energy field, from which everything comes, to which everything returns. Perhaps the Big Bang came from there. So while you by and by settle in that field very comfortably, the point zero energy field, you become the co-creator. You become the co-host. We are all gods in seed form, waiting for our nourishing, nurturing, blossoming. Be in deepest silence that you can be in as you breathe and you watch yourself breathe. In this watching, सचेतन मन, चैतन्य, जागृति, त्रस्ता भाव, केवल्य दशा, सजग होना, being awakened from inside. And this purity of silence can transport you, teleport you to multi-dimensions. Which makes you feel omnipresent, omniscient, and omnipotent. The immeasurable energy of all that was, is, and will be. Now you become untouchable and immortal in spirit. And when there is a reference of being immortalized from within, weapons cannot cleave you, fire cannot burn you, air cannot dry you, water cannot wet you, earth cannot bury you. You become invincible, infinite, eternal. This is who we really are. And each time we realize that, it is called self-realization. We become God-like, godly, and if there is a continuity of it with immense amount of understanding and living it moment to moment, years after years, you from God-like become God yourself. Now open your eyes, and as you open your eyes, there is a very different calm, there's a very different peace. You become like lotus in the muck. Being in the muck, you yet remain beautiful, unperturbed, undisturbed. So in Hindi it is called कीचड़ में कमल की भांति. कीचड़ में कमल की भांति. So you become symbolic of lotus, and lotus is symbolic of evolution.
My God, mind blowing.
Thank you.
This makes you just realize that we seem to be all the time rushing for things. There is merit in just stopping and pausing and just looking back at things without having to worry about tomorrow. I think it's just a very good calming effect. Thank you so much for this.
Good. Let me tell you one thing. This life is completely destroyed because morning to evening, either we are being pushed, or we are being pulled. Now this pushing and pulling stops in Shunyam Koshan when you calm down, and there is ease, eternal, infinite ease. So let me give you one very good, nice story, that in Japan, in a high-rise on some 80th floor was a Zen monk giving a discourse, and there were tremors felt, and the building shook, and there were some 50 odd people. They ran down, some took elevators, some just ran down. 30 minutes later, when they all came back thinking that we left the master behind, when everything settled down, they realized that the monk was sitting with the eyes shut with the same smile and peace and calm on his face. And when everybody settled, the monk started from where he had stopped. And when everything got done, some of them asked that, Master, when there was earthquake, we all ran helter-skelter. So why didn't you escape? He said, wherever you escaped, there was earthquake. Where I escaped, there was no earthquake. There was eternal calm. So this is that point, Shunyam Koshan. That was my first book rather, published by Penguin. And the Shunyam Koshan is the perfect book for physical, mental and spiritual evolution, especially mental evolution. Now let me tell you about the push and the pull. So since life is born out of polarities, matter has polarities. Before matter, there is no polarities. There is absolute. Okay, so matter has polarities. So when matter was born, polarities were born, and the difference between the matter, distance was born, and time taken to travel from one matter to the other, time was born. So these are all very These are only human perceptions. They've got nothing to do with the animal world, they've got nothing to do with the mountains, rivers. They don't perceive time. They are simply in the rhythm of life. Only humans perceive time. So time, as per Sanskrit, is Kal. And Kal means death. And Kal means history. Now there are other perspectives of time. So the hourglass perspective of time is running out. This is why we are divided. This is why the chase. This is why the pull and the push. The other perspective of time is that time runs in circle. Whatever goes around comes around. And time is eternal. That there is, But the third perspective of time of yogis is being timeless. When you are not subjected to time. And in meditation, you are not subjected to time. Your decay stops. Your entropy, the force of entropy stops. So time, matter, space, light, motion, mass, causation, effect. They don't affect you, influence you, impact you when you are into deep meditation, completely zeroed down. So you become timeless. And when you become timeless, you reverse your age. Cellular regeneration happens. Now, let me give you an understanding of what is yoga and what is Ayurveda. They are not preventive. Yoga is productive science and Ayurveda is a creative science. Now, it is a science of bringing polarities into harmony. So, polarities are always in conflict and contradiction, which what we call stress and anxiety. But when polarities complement in meditation, a balanced human being. When polarities complement, it is called confluence of energies. I'll give you a simple example that when Ganga starts from whichever point and Jamuna starts from whichever point, and when they come at the point of confluence, Saraswati is born. Actually, the confluence of Ganga and Jamuna gives birth to a new reality which is called Saraswati. Which is why in Kumbh Mela, every 4 years, we go there at the point of confluence because as per Vastu, that energy portal is very vibrant. And if you were to take dip in that with full orientation, and in awareness, you come out to be a new spiritual human being. You can neutralize your karma as much as possible if your intentions are pure, real, and if your devotion is true, if your sincerity is 100%. So it is said that yoga is about confluence and congruence of your sacred geometry with the sacred geometry of the universe. And when the lines which divide you, which means the lines of your body, get obliterated, you become one fractal design with ever-expanding universal consciousness. So the collective consciousness, you become a part of it. So, from contradicting polarities, conflicting polarities, you get into complementing polarities in the Shunyam quotient, where you give rise to new realities. But in Shunyam quotient, what typically happens is facts seem frivolous, logic seems lame, reality becomes relative. Okay? And truth is seen. So, logic is lame, reality is relative, and facts are frivolous.
I don't know what to compliment more on your knowledge or your command over the English language.
Well, it's divine grace.
Interestingly, you mentioned to me yesterday a line which stuck with me, and I thought, for the benefit of the audience, you could share some more details. You said, what do we run towards and what do we run away from?
Correct. So, recently I was training the Adidas running team, and suddenly this line came to my mind, because I'm not a fan of running, by the way. So anyway, I said, okay, why are human beings running so much? What are you running towards, or what are you running away from? Why can't you just be? Because in yoga, you are just being. Then I said, if at all you want to, don't run, jog. Jog your memory. And in jogging, it's like the trot of the horse. Tuck, 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 tuck. The rhythm comes to life. In running, it's like a gallop or a canter where there's a chance of tripping and falling. but with trot comes very stability, absolute stability. So a running mind is capable of making mistakes, but a stable, calm, relaxed mind, like a tortoise, will only be in the state of being and becoming. Very, very important that when you jog, don't disconnect. Connect with the open sky. So typically what happens is, when you look at the sky, there is a shift in consciousness. Because all the time in four walls, you feel limited, obstructed, limited, restricted, prohibited, limited, inhibited. Don't do this, don't do that. But when you step out in the open, nature communicates that everything is eternal, everything is infinite, you feel liberated. So from erratic breathing, your breathing comes to rhythmic breathing. Each time you step out from elevator and lobby and come to the open, if you're conscious, you will realize that you take the first deep breath. Each time you go to an ocean, you take a deep breath. Each time you enter a garden, you take a deep breath. The conscious breath comes in and then it falls into rhythm. So in openness, come into rhythm. By the trees, by the lawns, by the sky, listening to the chirping of the birds, connecting with the flight of the bird, with every such visual, that should translate into a bioelectricity change, transformation, or of an emotion of making you feel the same. A flight of the bird should make you feel very liberated. So when depressed people are shown the visuals, like when I handle depressions, when I do counseling, I make them imagine birds flying, listening to the chirping of the birds, and there is an instant change. Everybody must have heard about Pavlovian theory. Now, the Pavlovian theory I use as therapy. I make people visualize. I say, which is the best fruit you like? Which is the best mountain or river or lake or ocean you like? Shut your eyes and transport yourself there. They live that moment. And when they begin to live that moment, they begin to liberate themselves from fears, phobias, anxieties. Let's do a very quick meditation on that. Okay? The earlier what we did was only breathing and settling down, calming down. Now we will do a guided meditation. Okay. So why do we always need to shut our eyes? Because you must know that all perceptions, 80-90% perceptions come through the eyes. Eyes create a theater in your mind. But when you cut the 80 to 90% feed, the rest 20% feed is very easy for it to settle down. So first few moments we will just breathe in and breathe out, and then you do exactly what I tell you to, and it will be fun. So, before starting, just get your spine straight a little bit. Straight but not stiff. Straight but not stiff. The beauty of yin and yang is, the yin and yang means hard and the soft. Hard but not harsh. Soft yet not yielding. Remember that. Hard, not harsh. Soft yet not yielding. So, be relaxed, spine straight. Eyes shut. Now you have two hemispheres of your brains. Now shut your eyes. Cut the feed. Now imagine two hemispheres of your brain. Left and the right. One is analytical and one is creative, compassionate. One knows pride, anger, lust, envy, gluttony, avarice, sloth, and the other knows compassion, benevolence, sympathy, empathy, philanthropy, caring, sharing, giving, forgiving, blessing. Now, when these both brains work together is exactly when your two nostrils breathe in together. Or when your two nostrils breathe in together, these two sides of your brain work in tandem. Throughout the day, either of your nostril is working. Every 45 minutes there is left to right and right to left, like periods, which is why the imperial system of learning came with periods of 45 minutes. Just allow yourself to breathe and breathe with both the nostrils. Now let go with your mouth consciously. Now there is conscious breathing. While you continue doing this, I'll tell you something. Yoga is about letting go, letting go, letting go. Letting go facilitates letting in. The focus is not on letting in. The focus is on emptying the glass. The philosophy of Tao. Only when the cup is empty, it can be refilled. The philosophy of Zen. Empty the mind, mind the emptiness. So let go, let go, let go, let go. You will be surprised to see that your body begins to feel easy. The knots, the adhesions of the body begin to get relaxed. Your muscles, your joints are relaxed. The tensions in your cartilage, in your collagen, in your frown lines, on your face, they simply begin to get relaxed with each breath out. Your face gets more and more calmer, 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 calmer. Keep breathing out. Now, we will breathe in strength. Imagine you're breathing in strength. And you're breathing out fatigue and exhaustion. You're breathing in strength. And you're breathing out fatigue and exhaustion through your mouth. Long breathe outs. Now you breathe in courage through your nose. And you breathe out weaknesses, fears, phobias. Breathe in courage. Breathe out fears, phobias, weaknesses. Breathe in courage. Breathe out fears, phobias, weaknesses. From below your navel. Now you breathe in hope, despair. Now breathe out. Breathe in hope and faith. Breathe out despair, anxieties, insecurities. Breathe in hope, faith. Breathe out insecurities, despair. Breathe in love, breathe out hatred, detest, detestment, detestment, detestment. Forgive yourself, forgive the world. Forgive yourself, forgive the world. Love yourself, love your world. Love yourself, love the world. In this process, you become one with the universe. The congruence of sacred geometry happens, oneness, yoga happens. The confluence of polarities bring you to the point of oneness. Now open your eyes and everybody smile like Barfi. And this smile comes naturally because you're not holding on to anything. You've let go on everything, you've dissolved everything. You've alleviated everything, you've neutralized everything. And you've not neutralized and not dissolved with aggression at all. There's nothing to fight. So mind is an acronym of mindful insights, dissolving, neutralizing dualities. Mindful insight, neutralizing dualities. So, on the ladder of evolution, we can climb higher than gods or fall below animals. So, you and me are born of a mighty purpose and of a mighty kingdom. Our evolution is 14 billion years old. That is if we follow the theory of the Big Bang. Or even if you follow the theory of panspermia. Panspermia is a theory when it said that the microbes or the life force came with meteorites and asteroids to Earth. The other theory says that after Big Bang, on the rims of the volcano, when the first life form was seen, which is called chemolitho-autotrophic hypothermophile. Chemolitho-autotrophic hypothermophile, which eventually became a human being today. Alright? Now human beings are capable of singing, dancing, emoting, laughing, analyzing, calculating, understanding, digesting, creating, producing, loving, hating, destroying, crying. So we have evolved, and we get scared of the virus whose lifespan is not more than 14 days, 15 days. It is a shame. It's a disgrace. Our immunity can give us eternal life, a disease-free life, a death-free life. We can live to perpetuity. We can simply let go of food, let go of water, let go of breath at will, and transform, transmigrate and reform. Enter a new life or get liberated, nirvana, moksha, but certainly not die to disease. It's a disgrace. So choose evolution over entropy. Choose Ashtanga of yoga. So the Ashtanga of yoga is Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dhyan, Dharana, Samadhi, climbing up the ladder of evolution. Mark Twain said there are two most important days in man's life. Day one, that you're born, and day two, when you realize why. Human beings in meditation realize that the purpose of their life is to evolve. And this is not the evolution of Sigmund Freud and Darwin, which is adaptation and survival. Animals survive, animals thrive, humans prosper. And this is not the prosperity of Mukesh Ambani. This is the prosperity of a fulfilling sleep, a happy morning, looking forward to wake up. This is a prosperity of being able to eat simple, small, sattvic meals and being fulfilled and satiated. This is being able to love everybody unconditionally when love becomes a state and not a condition anymore. So this is that kind of evolution. So you become God, godly. And you know, typically it was very funny. I was with one IT professional, and I also heard Deepak Chopra saying this one. So what is the definition of God in IT parlance or scientific technological parlance? So from being chemolitho-autotrophic hypothermophile, we can become acausal, non-local electromagnetic field of energy and information with self-referral cybernetic feedback loops. This is what a superconscious human being can be, a God. So God is a phenomena. God is a phenomenon. God is a creative process. God is actually a verb and not a noun. Only in Indian Sanskriti we realize that God is a verb and not a noun. Why? Because God is a continuous process of being and becoming. Which is why in Hindi we have words called Anubhav, which is experience, and Anubhuti. So there is no appropriate word of Anubhuti. Because actually, when you say God is constantly dynamic. It is an ever-changing creativity process. And then there is a God in the state of being, which is the non-change on a vector scale, which is the zero. So even there, the quantum mechanics today have seen quantum fluctuations. Now these quantum fluctuations you can access in the deepest state of meditation, and they can teleport you to different dimensions. So Dr. Roger Penrose and Dr. Dean Ornish, while they were conducting experiments on brain-dead people, and whenever they heard the accounts of near-death experiences, they found out that between your two brains, there is a small microtubules, which fluctuate for 96 hours even after you're physically dead. Which is why in India, we have the Chautha. And in the Chautha prayers, literally prayer, they pray to sever your memory from earth. So to sever that memory because microtubules still fluctuate. So what had happened with BBC had recorded experiences of people who were 4 hours dead, 6 hours dead, 9 hours dead, and when they came back to life, they spoke everything about the surgeons discussing, the nurse doing this, and everything that happened in the theater. So this is what we human beings are, super conscious beings, larger than life. It's a grace to succumb to disease. Let's not be vulnerable hosts. What is a virus? It is a toxic purge of a toxic cell. We don't catch virus, we give birth to virus. You know, Louis Pasteur on his deathbed said that I regret all my life I ran behind the microbes. I should have looked into human terrain. It is so marvelous. It is so beautiful. And I'm so sorry it has become a gutter. So let's make our lives gardens again. Fragrant again, colorful again, sweet again, fruitful again. And this is possible when you become pantheistically inclined. When you get deep dissolved into epistemology, it is called epistemological humility. So epistemological humility is not aligned with Christianity, aligned with Hinduism, aligned with any. It's like a Sufi, fakir. He just bows to the wonderment of nature and its creativity and its vastness and its beauty and wonderment. And he bows to the miracles, every second of miracle. And he wonders how are flowers so sweet, are they so fragrant, so colorful? How are, sunrises and sunsets so wonderful? Where does the energy come in the ripples of the waves and of the ocean? How does water so sweet climb up 200 feet into coconut? This is wonderment of nature. He doesn't question. So that is creative force, creative phenomena, the absolute, whatever you may call. So that is epistemological humility. And one is pantheism. Pantheism is aligning with the creative powers and the creative forces. So universality in multiplicity and multiplicity in universality. Okay, so this is oneness in the integration of all. So Yatha Pinde Tatha Brahmande, the first yogi of the world said that, Shiva, which means as is the atom, so is the cosmos. Science said it only 30-40 years back. Aham Brahmasmi. I am the creator, I am the destructor, I am the maintainer. Everything it's me, Tattvamasi. This is that is this, and this is all that is. So, if you, and Soham. So Soham is also I, the Vishnu, Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh. And of course the Trinity, the Trinity, the creator, the administrator and the destroyer. But everything is about this oneness. Everything is about this wholeness. And how do you get there? Purity, sattva food, sattvic gun, vegetarian eating, cleansing, purifying, regulating and fortifying. Such simple things. Eat clean, eat green. Work out clean, work out green. Be lean, don't be mean. Okay, plug out from the machine, plug into your heart, go green, which means do yoga.
And at this point, I'm actually going to ask Anil to come in for the last segment. And
Anil come in.
Yes, and he's promised me that he's going to really, really test all the knowledge that you have before we conclude. Anil, all yours.
My God, Milky, this is amazing. I was listening and a couple of things caught my attention. You mentioned about the Ganga and the Jamuna confluence and, giving birth to Saraswati.
New reality.
And you mentioned a very interesting term there where you said, and you can actually neutralize karma, you said. So I just want you to elaborate there, how is wellness and karma related? Because I found that quite fascinating, neutralizing karma.
Okay, let me tell you. So once in my morning Get Mikami's messages, I had written a line which read like this. Let me remember, it was many years back. That from USA to Burma, your boss is your karma. Karma throws you and sends you full toss. Even Christ had to carry his own cross. So can you imagine that karma is a principle? Karma is not God. It is a principle of this electromagnetic field, the way it functions, cause and effect. But there are people like Christ, Muhammad, Shiva, they can rise above karma and neutralize it. Now, when people actually can neutralize karma and rise above it, you can be the progenitor of retrograde causality. Now, the science of retrograde causality has come in quantum physics, where the effect comes before the cause. Everything is very mind-boggling in modern science. Everything is very mind-boggling in modern science. Now, the way to neutralize karma. One is that there are two very big Sanskrit philosophies. One is Swikriti, acceptance. But acceptance is a very shallow word of English language. This is acceptance with divine grace, with head down, with your ego annihilated. That I accept everything the way it is, and in this acceptance is the taking of responsibility. It is actually acceptance of your responsibility, that inadvertently I would have sown a seed of a cactus. Thus, I couldn't find a lotus. So inadvertently. So first take responsibility. Take responsibility, then take charge. Now, when you take responsibility, your mind opens up. When you take charge, your self-confidence grows, your conviction grows, you begin to get vision. Now, these are natural processes which happen to you with the change of attitude, because your biochemistry changes. And then you set aside, you start your journey to course correct. Now, that is one way of doing it. The other way of doing it, processing all your karma and neutralizing it in your mind, burning it. The japa and the tapa. So tapa is tap, literally tap. You burn it inside you. Then you can actually do rituals and havans, and with all intentions and sincerity, you can be there, feel the heat and pray it out. Your, forgiveness. And you can process it in the mind. Let's say, in olden times we had the wheat. We used to separate wheat from the chaff, right? So sifting, you can do sifting. You can do weeding out very consciously. Actually, when I work with corporates, I make them weed out the fears. I make them weed out the negative karmas, the anger, the frustrations, the anxieties. You can literally weed out. So it can be done consciously, it can be done ritualistically, it could be done process driven, which means you actually walk that path, and everything put together also it can be done. And trust me, for those through the level of deepest and the highest state of consciousness will seek forgiveness, will be released. You will start releasing it. It's like taking a bath. It's like cleansing. It's like detox. Westerners talk about detox. It's about purification. But this purification is called Shuddhikaran. And with this Shuddhikaran comes Vairagya. So first comes Swikriti. And then comes Vairagya. And this Vairagya is not social distancing. This is distancing from desires. That doesn't mean you don't remain an aspirant anymore, but you don't get desperate anymore. And in Vairagya, you start distancing from desires which don't serve the larger interest. You come in the state of awareness, of simplicity, which opens up your eyes, not to eyesight, but to vision and perspectives and profundities of life. So there are various ways of doing it. Living it, breathing it out. You can breathe it out, sift it out. You can process it in your mind. You can do rituals. You can do water. When you're taking the bath, eliminate your negativities. Eliminate your anger. Breathe out your anger. Breathe out your frustrations. Breathe out your anxieties, your fears, your phobias. That also is cleansing your karma. Now, literally, let me tell you that in your Manipura chakra, all your fears, phobias, anxieties, despair, their resentments, grudges are collected in your Manipura chakra, life after life. Now, I'll give you an example that life precedes or memory precedes life. I'll tell you why. How? Have you heard about savants playing piano at the age of 4? Have you heard about savants computing mathematics at the age of 7 without even learning them? Have you heard about 12-year-old? It had happened in the time of British colony, and when Gandhiji was alive, that there were many cases of rebirths and reincarnations were reported, and they were validated by news, and then of course the tabloids had published, and it is there on website. You will be able to validate it. So memory precedes life. So build new memories. And what happens is, so you carry forward our karma, and fears are there. Why some person would be, fearful of heights, and why somebody would be fearful of water? Because you've collected that over a period of your lives that you've lived. And this is your chance to wipe out all your fears, phobias. So when you do Pavan Muktasana, you breathe out from your solar plexus. You can literally consciously breathe out all your fears and phobias. So when we say, do you have the guts? It is not the guts about to pick up a fight. It is the guts to have the strength to remove your weaknesses and bring back courage inside. Fill it back with courage. So, world's leading scientist, biologist Bruce Lipton today says, your belief can change your biology, but Mickey Mehta says, your faith can transform your physiology. Your breathing can change your hormonology. Meditation and prayer can change your psychology. And it is so simple, yet it is scientific, yet it is ancient. I mean, we are fortunate that today science is validating everything Ayurveda and yoga ever said 10,000 years back or 50,000 years back. So, I would probably say, we are the descendants of Christ, Mahavir, Buddha. Anil, you, me, Shilpa, everybody in this room, if you can consciously suck in and breathe in the air once Buddha breathed in and once Christ breathed in, it will be available to you. Because those atoms are still there. So the Akasha which I say, the ether is the only non-change factor. Fire changes form, earth changes form, water changes form, air changes form. Ether is the spiritual aspect which Sanskrit recognized ages back. And only Ayurveda uses ether as a form of medication, transformation, healing. Even homeopathy doesn't recognize ether. Although homeopathy is also very natural, but homeopathy misses out on ether. Ayurveda incorporates ether also. That's the only non-change factor. So the non-change factor we access in the field of meditation, in the field of prayer, in the field of being one with nature. So when you hug a tree, smell grass, smell an orange rind, taste pomegranate and roll it in your mouth, connect with the sky, connect with the full moon, you access ether.
Wow, amazing. What can I say? Another thing that really caught my attention was you mentioned that I was, flabbergasted. You said wellness can actually lead to immortality.
Correct.
I found that amazing. I mean, so if human beings become immortal, what would be the order of life? I mean, like an HR professional, I'm thinking, do I have to change my retirement policy from 60 to 100?
Yeah. Okay, let me tell you. So first, let me tell you how wellness can help you sort your karma, because wellness is all about equilibrium. Wellness is about Shunyam Koshan. Wellness is about integration. Wellness is about orchestration. Wellness is about wholeness. And wholeness neutralizes negativity. But wholeness doesn't give rise to positivity either. Wholeness brings a balance between the two, because negativity, some kind of negation is required. Opposites are required. Polarities are a boon. Without darkness, we would never appreciate light. We would not know what light is. Okay? So without the sinners, without the kama, krodha, lobha, moha, madha, maya, matsara, pride, anger, lust, envy, gluttony, avarice, sloth, we would not know what is compassion, what is sympathy, what is empathy, what is philanthropy, what is benevolence. So we must thank the opposite for us to give us the contrast of learning and experiencing. It is by contrast that we experience and we grow. So that's number one. So yes, eternity, life to eternity. So you can cleanse, purify yourself, regulate yourself, and fortify yourself. So with sun, with breath, with food, with sleep, with meditation, with prayer, with exercise. And you can be disease-free. Let's say you become disease-free. You purify, you purify, you purify, you cleanse, you cleanse, you regulate, you fortify, you become a master. Nothing goes wrong. You are always in the state of ease, equilibrium. There will never be disequilibrium. So you will be in the state of health and healing. So health is nothing but etymology, healed high, healed hem, healed how. Health means organic unity of your cellular community for the immunity of humanity. Now when your immunity is completely to the peak and at the crescendo, no disease can ever touch you. So you will never die to disease. Then what should kill you? Accidents? No. Because you will be so conscious and so aware, you will never run into accidents. You will not even board the plane which is going to crash. You will not steer into the path which will take you to the crash. You will save yourself from the crash because you will be so conscious. So then what will kill you? Nothing will kill you. So then what happens? Now Mahavira came with a beautiful philosophy which Pythagoras 6,000 years before Christ, when he had come to India, he learnt and he went back and he wrote something called Jainosophy. So Mahavira came with a philosophy of Santhara. Santhara is Ichha Mrityu. It could also mean Ichha Jivan. And this doesn't mean death wish, this doesn't mean euthanasia. This means that I will live till I can contribute to this universe. Once my role in this universe is done, I will take my family on board. I will talk to them and I will say, let me go. I want to let go. Let me go. So then we come to the philosophy of Samarpan, Atma Samarpan. And we seek Samarthan, which means the cooperation of the family. Because if the family obstructs, it's not possible. So the family supports. Why? I'll tell you the reason why. The family supports. So the person after 84, Lagbhag, stops eating. After taking the family on board. Now stops eating and gradually weakens. Then stops drinking water. So first the lust for food is completely severed. Anil, this is a great process. The attachment with life is first severed with letting go of food. The lust for food, when completely severed, you rise up to a level of seeing things in very different light. Then you let go of water. You no more want to quench your physical thirst and you no more want to quench any other thirst of life. So let go of desires. So then you let go of drinking water. And then you scale up, upregulate in spirituality. You climb the ladder further on the path of evolution. And once you're completely comfortable and stable in the state of letting go water and your body is still breathing. And by the way, let me tell you, there are breatharians on this earth who only use sunshine, photosynthesis, and only use breath to live. And don't eat food and they live till they want to live. Okay, then there comes in a point of time where there is ultimate realization of the Brahman. Because when there is nothing to disturb, digestion disturbs. Water disturbs. When you're purified to the level of absolute, you see everything in one light. So 3D turns into 5D. The three-dimensional life is seemingly the 5 dimensions. And you see everything happening before you, past, present, future. And that is the time you become so calm and so collected and so still. Then you choose a moment and you tell your parent, you tell your family, okay, I am choosing the moment to let go now. And in that moment of let go, you are so conscious of life that you are so conscious of death. And that is not death, that is a point of transition. You choose to become a flower, you choose to become a fruit, you choose to become a butterfly, or you dissolve into the sky. Or you choose to become a human being and come back and serve. That is the time when any couple which is copulating in the state of worship, not in the state of sex, when sex becomes love and love becomes worship, and they are in the right moment, they attract such souls. Why Krishna and Christ are not born anymore? Because the souls are born out of acrimony, distraught, conflict, and not harmony of souls, and not out of worship. So then he lets go, and that letting go is Ichha Mrityu. Mrit is opposite of Amar, and there is a lovely shloka of Sanskrit, Asatoma Sadgamaya, from Antruth to Truth. So in this journey of cleansing, the Jaina goes through Asatoma Sadgamaya, Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya, take me from ignorance to light. And when he dissolves into the sky, lets go his breath, Mrityumma Amrutum Ghamaya. So from mortality to immortality. You and me can do it.
Amazing. Miki, listening to you tells me that our understanding of wellness is so narrow and limited. You're actually talking of, and I've heard you speak on radio as well, that it's human evolution.
Yeah.
So, how is it? Can you elaborate that a little bit more? Because it's so limited.
Okay.
Our understanding.
I'll tell you. So, when I talk about, first of all, health is used so loosely by the medical fraternity. Medical fraternity don't sell you health. They only sell you disruption of health. Health has got nothing to do with medicines. That's number one. Health is all about healing, and evolution and healing go hand in hand. So I tell people that you come to me to evolve, and health falls into place. So on the ladder of evolution, let me tell you Anil, let me tell you Sanjay, let me tell you Ekhak and Shilpa and as many people I can see on the screen. So, on the bottom of the pyramid of evolution, there is fitness. Okay? So, strength, stamina, agility, muscle tone, body mass ratio, endurance, and your fitness is done with fitness can't give you anything more. Then, step 2, health. We climb the ladder of evolution. Heal thy, heal them, heal thou. Organic soundness. Organic unity. Okay? And with this organic unity, you bring about immunity. So health gives you immunity. Then you come to the ladder of wellness. Now in wellness, when you climb the ladder, comes equilibrium of your mind, stability of your emotions. Equilibrium of your mind, stability of your emotions. And from there you go, after refinement, regulating and fortifying, you further go up. Then you come to, one is wellness, and then you come to well-being. Being is the order of ever perpetuating wellness. So you are constantly in the state of wellness, where wellness doesn't remain a condition anymore, it becomes a state, it becomes well-being. Now in this state of well-being, you translate into, yoga translates into, Ayurveda translates into building personalities and characters. So what happens? Confusion drops, clarity emerges. Complexities are drops, vision emerges. Lethargy is dropped, creativity emerges. Inertia is dropped, productivity emerges. Stinginess is dropped, flourishing flow emerges. So there are 4 pillars of well-being. One is your unit rhythm being synchronized with the unity rhythm. Rise with the sun, sleep after the sunset, okay? And the tides, the rivers, the moon phases. When our circadian rhythm gets synchronized with the cosmic rhythm, we are said to be in good health. So, unit rhythm, universal rhythm. Then number 2, be in the flow. The rhythm brings about or gives rise to flow. Now, flow is sympathy, empathy, benevolence, compassion, philanthropy, everything. Then, 2 other things: conserve your breath, preserve your body. Now, when all these 4 pillars fall in place, when you eat natural, wholesome, intelligent, ethical, sensible choices of food, which take you away from the forces of entropy, decay, disease, disorder, death, you are in the state of evolution. Wellness translates into making visionaries, leaders, champions, heroes of tomorrow, gods of tomorrow.
One last question before, if Shilpa wants to open it to others. One last question. So what you're also saying, Mickey, is that make wellness your religion number 1. So does that mean that, I need to give up, Christianity, Islamism doesn't need to be followed, or, Hinduism is not important, because you're propagating wellness religion number 1, and that's all there is. So could you elaborate that?
So, we are all aligned, and we are aligned by destiny, you may call. So let me tell you one thing: religions divide, wellness unites. When you go to a gym or to a yoga class, you don't see who you are. Okay? Our soul doesn't have any label. See, you may be wearing a denim every day, you could be wearing Pepe, I could be wearing Levi's, you could be wearing Armani, and I could be wearing Hugo Boss. But the reality is that they are both made out of the same denim, exported out of Arvind Mills. But they are divided in nature, in branding. So religions are divided with branding, and branding disconnects you from me. Correct? Now, let me tell you one more thing. That we have become more Hindus, more Muslims, and more Parsis because our temples are made only for us. And it's a structured way of running a religion. So wellness unites, religions divide. Wellness integrates, wellness purifies, wellness regulates, wellness fortifies. Wellness gives you a high elevation of devotion. Wellness gives you 100% sincerity. So once you're completely well, then you can become a better Christian, better Muslim, better Hindu, more devout Christian. Because you will understand the oneness of all, and then you will choose to follow your religion, and that is fine. So let wellness be the religion number 1, because wellness will heal the gaps. Wellness will heal the distance. And Buddha said that the pain comes out of being divided. The suffering comes in the gaps, being divided. Distance. Okay. So let wellness be the religion number 1. That's the... So let me tell you more about my 10 commandments. So my first commandment is, let wellness be the religion number 1. My second commandment is, join Dr. Mickey Mehta's wellness revolution for human evolution, not for weight loss. The third commandment is that let's have a disease-free world. Let 7 billion hearts resonate only wellness and well-being. Then my fourth commandment is that for strong biceps, uplift the poor. For strong shoulders, take the responsibility of the underprivileged. For a good vision, have a collective growth vision for everybody. For strong legs, be rooted in humility to be better rooted in humanity. Sleep every night with a wish to heal yourself. Wake up every morning with a promise to heal the world. And then, of course, the other commandments are: get energized, get naturalized, get optimized, get maximized, get internalized, get eternalized, get revolutionized, get evolutionized, get mesmerized, get hypnotized, get initialized, get specialized, get regularized, get revitalized, get Mickey-mized.
I think with that you have beaten Shankar Mahadevan's breathless for sure. But your energy is infectious. You're really infectious. I'm so happy that you're able to spend this kind of time. Until a lot of people have to drop off because there's a call at 7 o'clock.
I think we just without laughter and singing, this session cannot be complete.
Yes, please.
Let's all sing the song together. Okay, can I start?
Yes.
Heal the world, make it a better place for you and for me and this entire human race. There are people dying, da 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 da, and whatever. So heal this world. Let's all heal this world together. And a very good song from Michael Jackson's album comes to my mind. I am looking at a man in the mirror. I am asking him to change his way. And no message is loud and clear. If you want to make this world a better place, better look at yourself and make that change. And let's all make this very light. And let's laugh it all. Each time you laugh, your diaphragm moves 12-13 centimeters up and down. Your thymus glands produce immunomodulators. Your bone marrow produces immunomodulators. Your immunoglobulins are secreted. And these immunomodulators, interferon, interleukin 2, are available for $4,000 and $5,000 a while. And when you laugh and do pranayama, they are available to you free. So let's sing, dance to be immunized, to get Mickey-mized. Now let the questions come in.
Shilpa, before you ask, let me just, I have to go for another.
Yes, please.
Vicky, I'm going to rush into another call with the team is waiting. But thank you so much. And as Anil said, the wellness, as we understood, you have given a different perspective to the wellness that we understood. And I mean, I have not seen you, but I have only seen you, your pictures on the paper in the Marine Drive, you with Shaina and, giving yoga classes there. But this is a complete new avatar that I have seen Mickey as. But thank you so much. I really thoroughly enjoyed this.
Thank you.
Immensely will help us with. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we can have the questions coming in now.
All right, thanks,
Thanks, Sanjeev. Anybody else? All right. Yes, that's a wrap. Mickey, thank you so much. You've been so encouraging. I think you've given us, like he said, a very different perspective to life. And it was one of the most insightful sessions for us. And we've absolutely enjoyed your company. If time had permitted, we would have loved to just keep engaging with you. But brilliant time spent with you. Thank you so much on behalf of the entire Bulletin family.
I think we should thank Anil, Narona, and I think we should thank the CEO Forum, because of which I met Anil again.
Anil, would you want to say a short vote of thanks?
Outstanding session. I mean, my whole perspective about wellness, I came into the, session thinking something, and I carry, I'll always remember this all my life. I mean, what can I say? Outstanding, amazing. And like Shilpa said, you put Shankar Mahadevan to shame. Amazing, Mickey. I mean, would love to be associated going ahead as well. Simply amazing. And I just can't thank you enough for agreeing to, come at a very short notice and adding value to this, amazing group. So thank you. I mean, you're a legend, Mickey, and may your legend just grow. And may you, be immortal. What else can I say?
Get immortalized, get Mickey-mized.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. On that note,
everybody.
thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. And a special thanks to you, Mickey, Anil, for making this happen. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Shilpa.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, boogie!